Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe, and you're checking out Weekend at Gabe's, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. While you're here, also follow us on these social medias at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, and also at The Real Sam Crane. Thanks for checking us out.
Joining us now, she's in the green space. A friend of mine who is a wonderful artist. Also, Sam, get the air horn ready. A Columbia College graduate, alumni.
You said it.
He still does work with the out of school time program supporting kids, but also she has a new exhibit, Point of Entry, that features her watercolor work, which is now available through the end of the weekend at the Grand Gallery D. Ferguson Art Gallery, located over at 1376 West Grand here in the greatest city in the world. You guessed it, Chicago. Joining us now, Jeneca Onikoyi, right here on Weekend.
Yo,
Hi, what's up?
what's going on?
How are you? Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm really good. I'm like, it's been like really fun to like watch you in the green screen. I'm just like in the back, just like watching y'all vibe out. I'm like, oh shit, they've got so much energy. This is great.
Hey, that's what we do here. That's what we do.
We've been working on it for a long time. But like I said, go watch the past stuff and watch this stuff. It's a lot better to watch some new stuff. Trust me.
That was pretty good. I like this. I like this.
All right, sounds good. So you're on to talk about your new exhibit. It's been out a couple weeks. This weekend is the last few days of it. Point of Entry features a sort of your work using watercolor. So I know that you've been doing all kinds of forms of artistry, sketching, designing, painting, and of course with the new exhibit of watercoloring. But how exciting is it to finally have your work on display for all to see after all this time and effort that you've been putting into your own portfolios?
Ooh, it feels really good. It also just feels like it's the right time too. I've been like keeping these pieces like really close to my chest for a really long time. And Gabe knows this for sure. It's just like you can find me always like working with other artists, supporting other artists, being there and doing all the things for other artists. And so when it comes time for me, it's like, oh, I'll kind of do that. I'll kind of do this a little bit here and there. So it was a little scary for sure. There was a lot of hard work to kind of like pull the out, like the actual doing of the work had its own method and madness, but being able to talk about it and the exhibition statement in itself was just like it was like hard work. It was really hard work, but overall it feels really, really good. I'm really satisfied with how everything came out and like turned out and how everything was curated, so I feel really, really good. Yeah.
Great. No, that's good to hear. I think one of the most interesting things about sort of a gallery piece is that you have this period of time, and you would think like, I think, the normal anybody who doesn't do art would just think that like every night that you got to show that stuff is the same. But I feel like the art sort of from opening day to the final weekend goes on a journey of its own. So I was curious as to sort of how that has evolved for you over the period of time in this gallery. Like starting off at first, has your mood around your own art changed a little bit? Have you been able to polish up some of that wording that you were talking about before? What's that growth process been like for you?
So it kind of feels like so the opening night itself, it felt kind of like a coming out. It felt like, oh, this is really me. This is like, and really what it is, it's not like I was not being myself, but I don't think I could, by doing this, by sharing this, I could be more of myself. And for some people, this was their first time seeing me as a watercolor artist. People have known me in different ways. There's a lot of people who have, I've been really putting myself out there as a dancer this past year. So like a lot of people who know me as a dancer were like, you do visual art? What is that? What? You do things with your hands is amazing. So right. I would say from the opening night, it was like, oh my God, it's like, I felt kind of like a kid. It was like, everything's new. Everything's like bright and shiny. And there's a little bit of like, innocence and wonder and just excited to just like tell everybody that everything. And also to kind of like receive everybody who was coming in was really, really amazing. Now where I'm at, it's like, now it feels a little bit, I don't want to say like under my thumb, but it feels more comfortable. It feels like it's not like, oh, is that what I wanted to say? Is that how I wanted to say it? I think I did get past most of that by opening night, but now it feels like, oh no, that's me. That's what I would say. That's how I would show things like this. You know, it's just it's more comfortable. I'm like kind of more comfortable in my own skin and having this layer of myself be on me and also just out there in the open. So I think if anything, it's more of me has changed as opposed to my work. Not yet. You'll see some things in the future, but I'd say like me just kind of being more affirmed in myself and more what is myself. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You have a small poem that follows the title of the exhibit, Point of Entry. It focuses on confidence and knowing versus that of being. Can you talk about like why that was important for people to read that before they went and explored the work itself?
Oh, yes. So for those that don't know who haven't seen the work, so most of this work that I've exhibited is abstract female forms. That's what we're kind of like, that's our foundation of the work. They're absolutely in movement. They definitely bend anatomical correctness, and that's intentional. But what you see these figures doing is accentuating a state of being. So I have, through my own practice, through dance and through movement, have found myself being more in myself. And this work is the evidence of that truth. It's the evidence of that work, and it's the evidence of being in that state. So that poem kind of allows you to arrive and follow into and be able to identify this state of being. Yeah.
You touched a little bit on dance, and you know that's obviously a huge, strong piece of who you are. So my question is essentially, how are those two things tied together? Because this is a new thing, but I think that, you know, as artists, all the art that you take a part in takes a little bit of a piece of yourself. It's interesting to me that you do this physical dance, but also sort of this watercolor that you keep close to your chest. So how do those two things relate to you, and how do you strike a balance?
So I've been dancing since forever. My mom will tell you, when she was pregnant with me, she used to go to actually the first African club in Chicago called the Equator Club. That used to be located in Uptown. It was a wild, amazing, fabulous time. So when we would go there, right, I was in her belly. So she's pregnant with me. She'd go there and she'd come back, and literally I would be like bouncing in her womb, like to the beat. Like I literally have been dancing since I was, conceived, basically. Growing up, I would just watch all of these dancers. So I actually grew up in Evanston, but I spent, because of the connection with the Equator Club, it was my little brother's father's club in the 90s. So the majority of the 90s, I was completely surrounded by African dancers and musicians and artists. So I was constantly at African shows, international artist shows, and events where I would just be like, eye to undulating hip with dancers. And they it was like mesmerizing. It was absolutely mesmerizing. And you could like see it in me. Like I was like, oh no, I have to do what they're doing. So even at a young age, I was very quick to pick things up. And I think it was just this kind of like hunger and curiosity for just like the amount of like life that was in their body. So that's just kind of like my attraction with dance and movement. With watercolor, again, I've always been quick to pick things up. And actually I kind of, as an artist, I started more like in 3-dimensional work. I was like I made like an entire like town of miniatures in 3rd grade, like completely.
I would pay to go see that.
Yo, it was, yeah, like people. That's another one of those things where it's just like when it comes to art, it's a very because of just like how I do it. I don't need anybody else in the space. It doesn't require anybody else. Whereas dance, I mean, yeah, that can be intimate, like that can be like solo, but you pick up more from being in the space with other people and dancing with other people and around other people. So dancing has kind of always been like a more loud thing. It's been kind of like a more extroverted kind of experience.
Yeah.
Where my art, in ways that have shown up, people have seen some ways of me doing it, but when it came to watercolor, I'm like very, very disciplined and huge, huge self-critic. So it was always something that was just for me. Like I always knew that was like, it doesn't matter. It's got to be better. I'm going to push myself harder. How do I get more technical with my hand? Oh, I just understood like how to achieve that texture, that blending. Oh, now I learned a new technique. And it's just been something I've really kept for myself, because I didn't really need anybody's input to like tell me like, oh no, it's okay, you know, like, or like I was like, I don't want to hear you. But now it's some people have been like slowly finding out that I do that. So it made sense to kind of bring this introverted part of my visual art and my creative self out. So I would say in terms of like this relationship and this, especially this past year, my dancing has actually become more internal, and my visual work, I'm allowing it to be seen.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's as extroverted yet. It's definitely not there. It's still very shy. But they're allowing to kind of, I would say, like you said earlier, like balance. They're kind of finding some time playing the opposite. So like where dance has been very loud and my visual work has been like, my work has been kind of silo, like not siloed, but just like a little bit quiet, you know, quiet and shy. They're kind of like finding the opposites of that. Like my dance has become way more in my body, more internal, more sensual. Whereas like my artistry has become like, oh, you can see me now. You can look at this now.
Was that uncomfortable for you to sort of like, you know, to release that it takes a lot?
Yeah, 100%. I've been slowly doing it, and you know, you're your own worst critic, right? And so like I have 1,000, and I will have like a circus of ideas in my head until someone says something, and then it's like, oh wait, that's how you feel? Like I thought it was like 1,000,001 things. So the more I kind of kept slowly showing it, and I was seeing people's reaction, I was like, oh, people do want to see this, which sounds so funny now because it's like, why not? Like, why not? So, yes, but it was very uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know, like it's not where I want it to be. And then in some ways it's like, you know, there's some things that I feel like I didn't articulate the way that I wanted to. But that's what I'm also learning, is like that's a part of the process.
Absolutely. Once you let it go to the wind, then it's, you know, it's other people's interpretations take over, and that might not be what you was going for. But yeah, I love that answer.
The art of watercoloring dates back to the 17th century and has been reinvented with focuses that use pigment to heighten and provide an intensity. What draws you to the art of watercoloring, and what does this medium speak to you?
Ooh, I love this question. Like I said, I actually really was very strongly connected to 3-dimensional work. And a lot of that just had to do with like, I'm a very tactile kind of person. If I can pick something up, then I can make it whatever I want. With watercolor, when I started getting into watercolor, its textural quality is not as like intense, right, as something that's like physical. but the texture of watercolor is different because it's about how the colors stain the canvas. So again, in terms of like, if we're talking about more an internal experience, this is about it soaking inward and creating depth from how much you add and saturate the page. So there's there's more than a couple. There's so many reasons why I like watercolor, and I'm about to feel like I'm about to nerd out real hard. But really what it is that there's some really beautiful organic things that happen with water. So you just have to have a really good understanding with water and with color. I am a nerd for color and color scheme. So being allowed, there's a certain amount of play because water is playful.
Yeah.
But there's a certain amount of control and understanding of water that you need to have to be able to express and translate what you're trying to achieve. You can restrict it, you can expand it, you can do a bunch of different things. Like once you're in your medium, once in your element, there's plenty of beautiful things. But I think what it is that watercolor can still be super playful, but it can also really show you something that you weren't expecting because of how rich and how deep it can get. So.
It's so interesting that you take it like that, because I've heard from a lot of artists, and we had an artist on the show a couple months back from California who said quite the opposite. That watercolor is so unruly, that it won't do what it's supposed to. That she didn't want to touch it at all. She prefers the drawing with colored pencil or even painting and tattooing these like more concrete forms. But I love how you talk about water and letting it be free and letting it stain the canvas. I think that draws an incredible parallel with dance too. I mean, so much of dance is fluid.
Yes.
So yeah, it's awesome to hear you talk about that. Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to get into a little bit, and I'm gonna bring these back up. These are some portraits from your exhibit, Jen. So as I was investigating and researching watercoloring, because this is something you usually do with kids just for funsies, right? But there's a few different techniques. There's wet paint on wet surface, wet paint on a dry surface, or a mix. Did you exercise any of those different techniques and styles on any of these that we're looking at right now?
Yes, I did all three, but to be honest, I prefer wet on dry. Wet on wet is nice if you're isn't it nice?
It's a PG show.
So looking at these pieces, so in the way that I generate this work, I have a very clear like illustrative plan in my mind. So what I'm going to lay down in terms of the figure itself, like what the impression the figure is trying to give, kind of like the bone, like the bones, like the skeleton of the piece. I know exactly what's happening there. Once I start laying on the colors, that's where I can allow myself to make adjustments and lead to what's happening with the work and how I'm letting the work kind of breathe. So typically I'll start with wet on dry. I don't like a wet on wet technique is like you might take a spray bottle and kind of like mask the area down, or you might take a large brush and kind of paint the area, and then you start allowing blooms to happen, which is when you lay a color in and you allow it to flow. That's a lot of like really letting the watercolor be the watercolor, right? Be the water, let the watercolor be the water, right? I have fun with that when it's more background as opposed to my forms, but I do within my forms allow for that color to flow in concentrated ways. So I do a lot of allowing to, I'll paint an area wet so I know where the color will move. And that in itself is like controlled, but somewhat organic. I can't necessarily like control every bunch of branching that it does, but I
Right.
can control the direction in which it flows. So when it's larger, wet on wet is ideal because it covers more space. But these pieces are in a size where I do want more control. So I prefer wet on dry.
Got it.
That's awesome. What's next for you? Or can we expect to see some of these pieces become available in print form? Can we purchase these pieces? Is maybe an exhibition coming on the horizon where we can see you dance in front of all of your incredible paintings? What can we expect next?
Okay. So there are some projects that I will be talking about actually at the Artist Talk this Sunday.
You could talk about them now. We love Weekend at Gabe's exclusives. Don't get it twisted.
But what I will say is prints are available.
Awesome.
Prints are available. Website is on its way. I know that's like the biggest thing. People are like, "What? You're crazy. No website?" And I was like, "Listen, all of this is taking a very long time. I'm getting there." So that'll be coming soon. But prints are definitely available. The originals are definitely available too. But at the opening, actually, I had a fabulous projection artist overlay some images, some of which were actually images in my watercolor work, on videos of myself dancing.
Oh, wow.
It was very cool. It was a great, it was like, it was super fabulous. So in the future, there definitely will be a more kind of immersiveness between dance and movement and the watercolor pieces. But the keywords are bigger and badder.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I'll be playing more with that. Definitely playing more with time. There's something special about dance in the way that it is in motion, and motion doesn't exist unless it exists in time. So there'll be some play with that in the future. So yeah.
That's a bar right there. We love a bar.
Yeah.
Well, the exhibit is still up. It's running through Sunday, you said? Or
Yes. So Sunday, October 24th, will be the last viewing day. It'll be taken down the following day on Monday, the 25th. The Artist Talk is at 3, but we'll open up an hour before. So if you want to revisit the work, you get to walk around, you get to see the space, you get to be up close and personal with the work. And then we'll have a little sit down and you can hear me talk a little bit more about the work and all that fun stuff. With a fabulous moderator, by the way, one of my really good friends, Devin. So it should be fun. I'm excited. Yeah.
Awesome.
Great. I'll try to get out there this week, I promise. 1376 West Grand. That's at the Grand Gallery D. Ferguson Art Gallery here in the city of Chicago. Thank you so much, Jen, for sharing us some of your work from the exhibit. I know you don't want to give everything away so that people can go be excited about seeing some exclusive work that you're working on. But congratulations once again. I know this has been a long time coming, and we appreciate you giving us the time here on Weekend at Gabe's.
Thank you guys for having me. This was so fun.
Come back soon. We want the dance videos with the watercolor too.
Okay.
All right, Jen, we'll talk to you soon. We appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
All right, Jeneca Onikoyi joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's. Go check out the exhibit. I'm going to try to probably get out there maybe tomorrow after I get off the job. It's not too far from the office, so I'm going to try to slide through. I don't know if she'll be there, but I like to show support to people who show support to us.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if you have enough bag to touch one of them originals. Let me know.
If they have a layaway plan, that'd be great.
Yeah, finance the art. That sounds excellent.
I think it was like I think they said like Walmart.
She just hopped in the chat and says definitely do a layaway plan.
Like maybe I just get like little pieces of it with every
you can buy 1 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter square every week. Another one reveals.
Buy a quarter of it this week. I'll get you on the rest of it next month. But that's funny because like Walmart they're like, oh yeah, we have an installation plan for this holiday, and folks like that's called layaway. That ain't new. This is not new.
Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe. Thanks for checking out this latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's. Click on any of the links swirling around my head and also hit the subscribe button while you're here. Thanks for checking out us here on YouTube.